All right, so shifting topics a little bit. Cam, you actually had this one written down. So you're into airsoft, and we were talking a little bit about that yesterday, and
Yeah.
we got into a bit about how airsoft can be used to um, understand the gun debate. You wanna get into that?
Yeah, basically, a lot of the weapons actually kind of very similarly function the way like an actual firearm would. So, besides the obvious, using air or electric, but I mean, it seems like you kind of gain this respect out of playing for a little bit. Handling like normal firearms, you understand that, yeah, they could actually hurt someone, but with like an airsoft weapon, it's a little bit more relaxed because it's not going to really hurt someone, but it could definitely leave a small mark.
Yeah,
And so I feel like it's a greater way than actually purchasing like a full blown real steel weapon to, in a sense, understand how firearms work, how to care for one, actually, even, and also just kind of further your knowledge on firearms in general without actually having to buy real steel weapons.
yeah. I definitely appreciate how it's kind of like it's kind of like training wheels for gun ownership in a way.
Yeah, because like with all of my airsoft weapons, I keep them always stowed away where nobody else will really touch them, and I also keep them unloaded, never full of gas or anything, and I treat them as if they were an actual firearm. I never aim it at anyone, and never aim it at anyone jokingly, and I also always wear eye protection. Always, always eye protection with
Oh yeah.
airsoft weapons. I've seen and heard the horror stories of people having to get rushed to the hospital after playing with one of these weapons because they weren't wearing eye protection.
Yeah, you definitely gotta at the very least, you gotta wear some safety glasses.
Yeah. Usually when cleaning my weapons, I usually just wear simple safety glasses, but when I'm actually out on the field, I wear a shatter resistant goggles. Usually that's what people are using. Some people use like a full face mask covering to keep safe.
You gotta wear a mask to keep safe, just in
Yeah,
general now.
everyone wear your mask please.
Please wear a mask.
Please wear a mask.
That's a good thing that you brought up, though, about how, airsoft can really teach you to respect, firearms by removing the danger of it. Because
Yeah.
if you go to a shooting range and you've never held a gun before, you're gonna be terrified the whole time because it's like, if I don't handle this correctly, I could, you know, at the very least, shoot myself in the foot or seriously injure or kill myself or others. So you don't really get
Yeah.
to appreciate why people like it. Um, but with airsoft, you get to experience it in a relatively stress-free environment.
Yeah, and also the community in general is like extremely open to like people who have questions who have never even fired a weapon in general. And so it kind of just takes away that like everyone's like an elitist. Like, no, everyone's there to help everyone and further everyone with their knowledge. And a lot of people who actually do airsoft do have real steel weapons and obviously treat them accordingly.
Yeah, I figure airsoft is a good way to get some practice in without actually shooting other people with a real gun.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, airsoft is literally just us playing dress up and shooting each other.
It's just it's LARPing as Call of Duty.
You want to role play in my army? Ooh woo.
Nuzzles barrel, ooh woo, do it, pussy.
Do it, motherfucker. Pull the trigger.
Do ooh woo it, motherfucker. But yeah, airsoft. I never really noticed until you brought it up yesterday. Like, it gets you into the mindset of gun owners, and it makes you appreciate that guns are a hobby for many people.
Yeah.
And it also, on the other side, there are a lot of things that airsoft players, I don't know if that's the right word, airsoft players, that doesn't
Yeah.
seem right. Yeah, I guess airsoft players generally agree that there are some things that shouldn't be allowed in the game. And then that also gets you into the mindset of like, there are some restrictions that should be in place on this hobby.
Yeah.
So I feel like it
Like,
really helps both sides of the gun debate get to like a middle ground in a sense.
yeah, because we actually have like restrictions on like exactly like how much we rate our firing in joules with the impact of the BB, because we actually used to do FPS, which is feet per second, and around like the 350-ish FPS mark is where most CQB weapons place, and 400 to 450 is where most DMRs and snipers will place. But we actually found out a phenomenon a little bit ago, something called joule creep, which in airsoft there's a little bit more technicality behind it, especially when you deal with heavier weight BBs. So if you chronograph a zero point 0.2 gram BB at about 350 FPS, or say it's shooting a little bit hotter at like 360, 370, you might end up being classified to be, only able to fire upon people who are about 50 feet out. Otherwise, you have to switch to a different lower powered weapon.
Right, and that makes total perfect sense.
But the thing is, though, is that what people were ending up doing then is putting heavier weight BBs. And since it's a heavier weight, it'll fly slower. But the thing is, though, is that it has more potential energy behind it. And so this is exactly how joule creep goes. Because what it is you're firing at a lower FPS, but you've got more energy behind it.
All right, let's get Craig out of here. So he just that noise, viewers, was Craig, our Discord bot, doing a little fucky wucky. So we're gonna kick him out.
He's being naughty.
I'm sorry, Cam. You were saying?
That's fine. But it's the idea that some people will usually, want to shoot around like the 1 to 1.2 joule range for CQB, and 1.5-ish to around there to be like DMR. But usually when you're in a DMR category, you usually just shoot for FPS because you're just going to be that far out anyhow. But if you're above like say like 1.3 joule, you'll definitely be most likely classified as a DMR or sniper, because like obviously like we have to watch our weapons in general, because that's why we chronograph. Because Novrich is a person, he runs a airsoft website, obviously named Novrich, and he actually has a line of weapons that are a bunch of snipers and a couple handguns. But people have been known especially with the SSG 24 and the SSG 10, to mod these weapons to shoot at extremely high FPS. To which Novrich himself actually replaced the spring in the SSG 10, which is a sniper of his, and was getting it to shoot 5 joules. We're talking about that could go through, I guess, like some soda cans, maybe most definitely crack some safety goggles.
Ew, jeez.
Yeah,
he
that's
tested it
maybe
on
a little much.
he
Yeah.
tested it on a can of black gas, which is a propellant used for airsoft pistols and gas weapons, and it punctured straight through.
Yeah, so I could
Yeah, it's a
see
little
how that
bit.
maybe wouldn't be allowed on the battlefield.
Yeah, I forget exactly which type of spring he used for that, but it's a little absurd. And so that's why we also have like these regulations on them. It's just like obviously don't, be shooting 5 freaking joules with a 0.48 gram BB. For those of you who are curious on the subject further, it's a little bit easier to do the research on your own rather than having me explain it, because I might miss out on some key details.
Yeah, if you send me some resources on the subject, I'll have them linked in the description.
Yeah.
But yeah, so clearly, as you've outlined, there are certain things that are just not okay to bring to the battlefield, To play airsoft and to have a good time and to win, you don't need to be able to crack people's safety glasses.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
feel
I
like
want to.
and I feel like once you get into that kind of mindset, you can apply that to other things, like, okay, maybe we should ban bump stocks.
Yeah, because it's like the idea of like it's just excessive.
And maybe you don't need like a fucking bazooka to hunt.
Yeah, that and also it's like there's also some techniques even in airsoft that are sometimes outlawed at CQB fields because with some high kappa pistols, which are basically kind of for anyone curious, kind of like an M1911-ish 2011 design, and since the trigger is just basically just literally a hair's length away from being able to fire. Some people just spastically spam the trigger with their finger, and as suggestive as it sounds, it's called finger banging. But some players master this to be able to get like 15 rounds per second off just by finger banging. And some CQB fields actually outlaw that kind of technique because it mimics full auto, in which they have a lot of regulations on using full auto if you have a rifle.
No
Because
full
you
auto in the building.
but full auto is usually for something 50 feet or back even further, just so that way, you don't end up like full autoing some poor soul in the back because you burned your patch.
Imagine being that poor, that poor worker at the airsoft field that has to say over the loudspeaker, "Please no finger banging during the game."
Some refs are also really hesitant to call that out because they know exactly what it's called, but the thing is that there are children playing sometimes. Yes, there are children in this. I guess I would say it's a sport, but that's why I actually would
Oh
prefer
yeah, if
this.
cross country is a sport, so is airsoft.
Okay, you can shut the fuck up.
For those of you that don't know, Jake played cross country in
Ran,
he ran.
not played.
Oh, so it's not a sport then. Cuz you play sports. You don't run sports. My point has been made.
He rests his case.
He rests
But
his case. He tucks it in.
digressing back to the subject though, that's why where it also comes into the idea of that there are children here. But I actually would prefer children get into airsoft than to say have, their rootin' tootin' gun owning father or uncle or whatever take them to a firing range when they might not necessarily know exactly the repercussions of misusing a firearm would
Oh
be.
yeah. That is definitely irresponsible behavior in my book.
Because at least with like an airsoft weapon, it'll hurt, but you can at least give like a stern wording to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old for shooting you in the arm when they really weren't supposed to, versus you're being rushed to the hospital.
Yeah, or even like a full like BB gun or like a pellet gun. Like those are also options to regular firearms, but I mean even a BB gun will do a lot more damage than an airsoft gun.
Yeah.
Really, you think?
Well, no. I think what he's
But
meaning
they
is
use metal
metal BB
BBs.
guns.
Oh, right.
So I would classify that actually as a different category, just pellet guns. More so
Yeah.
just like either that or like metal BBs.
Yeah, like pellet guns are used to kill like rats and stuff, like small vermin.
Yeah. Like say like you have a squirrel problem or something.
The Verminator. I'm sorry.
But for the most part, especially since the field that I go to is outdoors, we use biodegradable plastic BBs.
Yeah, those are definitely a godsend in airsoft. I used to play quite a bit just like at my house with my friends, and it didn't take long for like the porch and like the yard to be like covered with BBs. And at that point I didn't know that there were biodegradable ones. So it was a mess to clean up.
Yeah, but it's actually a rule at the airsoft field, also pertaining to regulations, that you do use biodegradable BBs instead of like those weird like translucent green ones or red ones or whatever. Usually, all biodegradable BBs are they look just perfectly white, but usually all fields that are outside will tell you to use biodegradables. I'm not exactly sure on the regulations for CQB fields, which are usually indoors. So I would say check with your local field to see exactly which BBs you would want to use. Because my guess is that they would most likely just sweep them up at the end of the day using like a vacuum or something.
They probably reuse them too.
Actually, that is another thing you shouldn't do. Because say it hits the wall and
Oh, that'll be
doesn't hit.
deformed.
Oh yeah.
it could have micro cracks in it, and then therefore when you fire it again, it could fire and jam your weapon
Mm,
Yeah,
because it might shatter.
okay.
I have done that many times. I've reused BBs a lot. Luckily, I haven't like broken my gun because of it or anything.
Yeah, because don't ever reuse BBs that you fired because they could just, in general, just from firing alone, they might produce like micro cracks or something. And if you fire them again and they do end up cracking in higher priced weaponry, it could destroy, say, like your bucking, it could destroy your hop up, it could get stuck inside your inner barrel, and then that's just an utter mess. And then you're out like $40 because you got to get a new bucking.
Yeah, so if you do have a lot of spare used BBs, um,
Just
don't
dump 'em.
reuse them, but also don't throw them out. They can be recycled into Dippin' Dots.
That's it. I'm gonna load my SSP one with Dippin' Dots.
Oh my god, please. That's how you get me into airsoft. Load it with Dippin' Dots.
But that's also like why people also say like what weight BB are you using? Because if you're shooting at a high FPS or in a sense more so high joule output, you're gonna want a heavier weight BB because you're using a lot of force behind that. So if you just put like .12s in it, you're gonna shatter the damn thing, and it's just gonna jam your gun. So like usually a lot of people end up settling around the 0.28 gram mark or point to 0.32 gram. But for snipers, sometimes people like to go even heavier with 0.36s, 0.4s, and even 0.48s. And so compared to like a regular, like say, air quotes, stock 0.2 gram BB, those things are heavy and they carry a lot of force behind them.
Yeah, so like in conclusion, there's a lot of things that both sides of the gun debate can learn from about airsoft. Like if you're anti-gun, getting into airsoft can help you understand the mindset of like a gun collector, someone who's just into shooting.
An enthusiast.
Yeah, an enthusiast basically. And if you're completely pro gun, anti any kind of regulations, airsoft can help you understand like, yeah, there's certain things that just shouldn't be allowed on something so dangerous. And also you should use recyclable bullets, biodegradable bullets.
Yeah. Well, usually though, say like with real steel firearms with like shells and such, those are made of brass. And so usually those are recycled. And so you just pick those up after you're done firing. And I believe that some places even will just take them for you for like a small lump of change.
Wow, I'm gonna be real. I was kind of kidding about the biodegradable bullets thing, but I did not know that you could actually recycle bullets.
Well, it's not the bullets, but it's like
The
the
casings, I
shells.
mean.
Yeah, it's the casings that are
I
fired
know very
after.
little about guns, so I will never use 100% correct terminology.
But yeah, being as a person who's fired both real steel and just airsoft weapons, it definitely gives you a smaller perspective while limited into the idea of how gun ownership should be taken.